Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'll be doing intros in a second, but I may as well introduce myself first. So I'm Claire. I'm the head of ops here at Canny. So thank you so much for joining us today for our Canny's office hours. So this is a new initiative that we started this summer in an effort to bring like best practices and success initiatives that we usually share with our business customers to our self-serve customers. So this is our second session that we've run. The first one was really great. And we're going to be going through best practices for getting set up and making the most of your Canny workspace. So we'll get started in a couple minutes, or 1 minute probably. But while we wait, just a quick note about how this session is going to work. So Julia, who I'll introduce in a second, will be going through some slides. If you have questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A functionality. Sarah and I will be answering those throughout the webinar, especially for kind of simple ones. If there's any bigger, juicier questions, we'll be saving that, and Julia will be answering it live at the end of the session. If anything comes up, you can obviously chat to us in the chat, but that's kind of how it's going to work today. Next slide, please, Julia. Thank you. So I've already introduced myself. In the middle, we have Julia, who's our customer success manager. So Julia's worked in the feedback space for a number of years, and she works with some of our biggest customers like ClickUp and Typeform to help them really maximize their Canny space and prove the value to their internal stakeholders. And then we have the wonderful Sarah, who is our support and implementation engineer. If you've ever had a tricky question that you've asked our support chat, it's usually Sarah who answers and solves that problem for you, and she solves all of our problems internally. So you're in good hands with this team, if I do say so myself. But I think we're ready to get started. So I'm going to hand it over to Julia, and she'll take it from here.
Great. Thank you so much. I would have my Canny background, but I would just be a floating head if I did that. So I hope this is okay. But hi and welcome everyone. My name's Julia. As Claire mentioned, I'm the customer success manager here at Canny, and I'm so excited to walk you through the basics of Canny and making sure you feel comfortable using the Canny space. So whether you are just starting off, or you've been using it for a while but you just want to make sure your space is well structured, we will walk through the key steps to make sure you are set up for success. So today we will introduce you to Canny and how it can support your team. We'll walk through the Canny workflow, how to capture feedback, how we can organize that feedback, and how we can begin to prioritize it effectively. And of course, we will share how to close the feedback loop with your customers as well. And just so you know, this is being recorded. We will be sure to send the recording out along with the deck afterwards. But let's start off with what Canny is. Let's talk about it and how it can help your team. So Canny is an all-in-one tool for collecting and acting on your customer feedback. It helps to centralize everything into one place so you can understand what you need to prioritize, what you need to build next, and you can follow up with your customers automatically. As we know, feedback comes from many different places, from Slack, from sales calls, from Zendesk, and it can be really challenging to organize and understand that feedback. And so Canny brings everything into one place so you can take clear and confident action. And there's many different teams who use Canny. Typically, product managers use it to prioritize feedback based on real user data. Sales teams use it to track what their prospects are asking for, and also to unblock deals. Success teams use it to advocate for their customers and ensure their voices are being heard. And support teams use Canny to capture feedback from tickets and collaborate with the product team to drive fixes and improvements. And so there's 4 main steps within Canny where your team can start to get involved. So number 1 is capturing feedback. As mentioned, Canny is your central place for all feedback. You can collect feedback in 3 main ways, which is internally, manually, and automatically. Number 2 is organizing feedback. Once your feedback is captured, your product teams can start to organize it through the use of boards, categories, post fields, customer segments, and it makes it easy to spot patterns and understand what you need to prioritize. Which, speaking of which, that's number 3, prioritizing our feedback. And this is usually done in the roadmap view. The roadmap view can help you score and sort your feedback based on things like the number of votes based on the ARR associated. And finally, we can close the feedback loop within Canny as well. This is done usually through changing the status of a post, replying to customer comments, and publishing a post or updates on your changelog. And this is a really key and important step. It helps to build trust with your customers, and it shows that you're actioning your feedback. Well, let's talk about how we can gather feedback in Canny. So as mentioned, there are three main ways that we can do this. This is internally through an integration, externally through the customer-facing portal, and automatically using the autopilot feature. Well, let's talk about how we can capture feedback internally first. So we highly recommend setting up an integration for your internal team members. It's a really quick and easy way for them to submit feedback and allows them to stay within their existing workflow, which helps to gather feedback overall. We sync with dozens of tools, but one of the fastest ways to get started is syncing with the Zendesk or Intercom integration. I'm going to zero in on the Zendesk integration to show you what that looks like. It's very similar to the Intercom integration. But basically, once you have this set up, your team is able to click into the Canny widget directly within Zendesk, search for the relevant feedback, add that customer's voice to that piece of feedback, and ensure that customer's voice is being heard. It's a really simple and easy way to make sure that your customers' voices are being heard. And also, again, most importantly, it doesn't leave your support team's workflow, which helps us ensure that we're collecting more feedback. The second way we can start to collect feedback is through the customer-facing portal. So this portal is where your customers can submit feedback, and also it's a really great way to foster transparency with your customers. So here we are in our EcoZoom demo space. For context, EcoZoom is an eco-friendly transportation app. And on this page, you will notice an area called boards. Boards are an easy way to group your feedback into themes, and they help you understand, they help your customers understand where their feedback should be submitted. Um, it also, in turn, also helps you group things internally, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. So in this case, I have my boards set up based on the features of my product of EcoZoom. So let's walk through the end user's experience of what it would look like for a customer to submit feedback. So let's all imagine we're customers of EcoZoom and we want to submit feedback related to e-bike parking zones. Here's what we would need to do. Number one, we need to make sure we choose the right board. So in this case, we're going to select the transportation board because that makes the most sense out of all of these boards here. Number two, once we click into the transportation board, we will be prompted to a different page where we can search for existing posts. And so when we type in our feedback, add more e-bike parking, Canny automatically surfaces matching suggestions. And this is to help prevent duplicates, and it also allows us to support existing ideas. Number three, if the feedback already exists, we can upvote it. This will make sure our vote has been added. It also subscribes us to any updates on this post as well. If the feedback doesn't exist, then we can create a new post. So we'll pretend better bike battery is the feedback we want to submit, which doesn't exist in Canny. So we can seamlessly start typing in our feedback and add that feedback into Canny. Finally, we can click into the post view. So here we can get a full description of the request, comments from other users, any status changes made by the admin team, and we can also look at how many individuals have voted on this post. And this will help your end users understand if they're sharing their feedback in the right place. Also, it really helps with fostering transparency with your customers. Finally, the last way that we can collect feedback is automatically. Let's talk about autopilot. So autopilot does two key things. Number one, it pulls in feedback from tools you've already used like Intercom, Zendesk, Gong, and much more. And it scans these platforms for messages that might or that look like product feedback. Number two, it identifies and groups duplicate suggestions. So Autopilot is able to recognize common themes and assist with merging. One key thing to note is that any Autopilot feedback or suggestions is brought into the Autopilot tab of your Canny dashboard, which is separate to the feedback tab where manually submitted feedback is stored. Autopilot has two modes. There's the manual mode where you review each surface suggestion. And we have automatic mode, which will automatically add all suggested feedback to your portal inbox. So that includes any new feedback that Canny pulls in from connected tools and any duplicates that Autopilot finds. So here is an example of manual mode. So you'll see a thumbs up and a thumbs down next to the suggestion. The thumbs up means we are accepting this suggestion. The thumbs down means that we are dismissing it. And you'll see the three little dots as well next to the thumbs down. This means that we can move this post to a different post if needed. And then here's an example of automatic mode. So instead of the thumbs up, thumbs down, we're just left with a log of everything that Autopilot has done. If something doesn't look right, you always have the opportunity to edit or undo an action. And when you use automatic mode, you can choose which board the feedback filters into. So this is a quick look at what suggested feedback from Autopilot looks like. So in our demo space here, we can see we're connected to 6 different sources. We can also see that 5 suggestions recently came in from Intercom automatically. There was no need to ask our support team to manually submit this. It was just automatically brought in. And then here's an example of what deduplication looks like in Autopilot. So we can see on the right-hand side, a suggestion came in that mentions Spanish translation. And then another message on the left-hand side is mentioning Turkish translation. And so Autopilot is trying to group both under a broader suggestion for multi-language support. And I have to say, I work with a lot of customers. And one thing is true is that Autopilot has been tremendously helpful for the customers that I work with. And Autopilot helps to find feedback that might have otherwise been missed. Sometimes, our go-to-market team members misinterpret feedback, we miss feedback. And so Autopilot is almost like an insurance policy to make sure that your customers' voices are being heard. It also helps with grouping similar posts, so it reduces the amount of noise and also helps with that manual work as well. And so for a lot of the teams that I work with, it's a really important part of their process and a really key way to ensure that the feedback coming in, that you are getting the feedback and also it's not feeling overwhelming. So I really encourage you to check it out. Let us know what you think. And if you have any questions, of course, always feel free to reach out to our support team. But now that we understand how feedback flows through Canny, let's talk about how we can start to organize it. And so there are a few ways that you can do this. The most effective methods are creating a board, creating categories, and creating a post field. Sorry. One of the most important things to do when getting started with Canny is creating a board. You can think of boards as a folder. It helps you organize feedback into distinct areas that align with your product, with your team structure, or with your process. There are 2 main ways that you can set up your boards. Number 1 is by the product features, and the second way is by the type of feedback. And we'll review both in just a moment. But before we do, let's talk about categories and custom form fields. So categories live within each board and they give you another layer of organization so you can start to group feedback even more precisely. So for example, you can use categories for that extra layer to represent features, themes, or functionality. And post fields add even more context. So these are custom questions that you can include on your feedback form to gather specific insights from your users. So for example, if we use EcoZoom as an example, EcoZoom might ask a question like, do you use our bikes regularly? And so this helps us understand the context and behavior behind the request, not just why, what someone wants, but why they want this feature. Let's focus in on boards again. So as mentioned, there are 2 main ways that you can set up your boards. One is by product features and 2 is by the type of feedback. But we'll start by discussing how to organize your boards based on product features. This is one of the most common ways for setting up your boards, and it's helpful if you want to structure your feedback based on your team structure and how your product is built. And so we'll use EcoZoom again as an example. Again, EcoZoom is an eco-friendly transportation app. And so in this demo, you will see that the boards are organized by the product area like community and sustainability, navigation, and transportation. And again, these reflect the different parts of the EcoZoom product. So let's say a customer has feedback again about e-bike parking zones. Because e-bikes are a part of the transportation area, we would submit the feedback to the transportation board. Next, we have categories. So categories, again, live within each board and they help you narrow down the feedback even further. For this specific setup, we would recommend using categories to represent the sub-features or common themes that live within this product area. So in the transportation board, for example, you might have categories like shared car, e-scooter, e-bike. And so continuing with that example of submitting feedback related to e-bike, better e-bike parking zones, we would select the e-bike category. We also have a post field question in place here as well. We're asking, where are you using our product? And so the idea of this is to collect even more information from the customer. But again, overall, this method works well if you have a few product areas, each with their own feature or component within each area. The second approach is to organize your boards based on the type of feedback instead. So you might have boards like feature request, bug reports, feature enhancements. And so using that EcoZoom demo space as an example again, if a customer has feedback about e-bike parking zones, they would choose the feature request board instead. And then since our boards are organized by type of feedback, we may want to use categories to represent the different product areas. So for example, the categories in this case would include community, transportation, navigation, etc. So continuing with our example, we would select the transportation category within the feature request board. Overall, this method works well for teams that want to keep their feedback separate. It's also helpful if your customers aren't necessarily tech savvy. So it's just a simple structure for your customers. And then on the back end, you can start to organize things better. What we just discussed and talked through is just kind of two ways that we recommend setting up your boards. But that being said, there are a few important things to keep in mind when you're setting up your boards. So very high level, what we recommend is we generally don't recommend having too many boards or categories because it might overwhelm or confuse your customers. Another thing to think about is how many product managers will be triaging the feedback. If you have multiple product managers, it often makes sense to set up a board that aligns with each person's area of ownership. However, if you only have one or two product managers, sometimes a simpler board structure makes the most sense. Also, most importantly, think about how your customers will interpret the structure. If you organize your boards and you organize it based on the features of your product, will that feel intuitive for your customers, or might that create some uncertainty around where they need to post? The goal of boards is always to group feedback that is helpful for your customers so they know exactly where they need to share their input. But remember that boards right now are one of the main ways to organize your feedback as well internally. There's no right or wrong way in how you set up your boards, so choose the structure that makes the most sense with your team, your product, and your process. Once you have your board set up, the next is deciding who should have access to them. So in Canny, there are three privacy settings that you can choose from. So the options are number one, public boards. So public boards are open to anyone with a link, and it's ideal if you want to gather feedback directly from your customers or community. Secondly, we have private boards. This is only visible to Canny admin. So that's contributor, manager, and owner. And this is also helpful if you want to track internal feedback that you don't want to share publicly. A lot of our customers actually create a dedicated board within Canny called Future Ideas, and they collect future requests that they don't necessarily want to make public yet. And finally, we have custom access boards. Custom access boards let you limit visibility to specific groups like your paying customers, or maybe you want a board for your beta testers. And so you can restrict access to that board based on email domain, based on user segment, or inviting the individuals manually. You can set these privacy options up for each board, and you can update it at any time. But now that we understand how feedback is submitted and how we can start to organize it, let's focus in on how we can start to prioritize it. There are three main ways that we can do this. This is through customer data, through segmenting our customers, and using the roadmap. One key area to highlight, first and foremost, is customer data. If you have a Canny SDK or an integration that already collects customer information like Intercom or Zendesk, you can pass in useful customer attributes. And this helps us to understand things like how much ARR is tied to a request, which helps us further understand if we need to prioritize something. So for example, if we look at this post here, dark mode, we can see 35 people have upvoted this, and we can also see on the same line how much ARR is associated with these customers. On the bottom right-hand side here, you can see the voter list. And when we click into the voter list, we can see the individual customers who have upvoted this request, and we can also see their specific monthly or annual spend. And this is important because this gives us a better sense of the potential value behind this feature. Another way we can use customer data is segmenting our customers. This is helpful if you want to focus in on a specific type of user. So for example, you might want to see what your customers who are paying a certain amount of money, what they're asking for. We can create a segment by clicking into the gear icon here. And when we click into it, we can then choose different attributes to help us create a user segment. We can then search or filter based on that segment here in the feedback view. And we can also search and filter for a specific segment in the voter list as seen here in this little video. We can also do this in the roadmap, which we'll take a look at in just a moment. So far we've talked about how data can help you surface the right feedback, but let's take it a step further and look at how we can bring this all together in the roadmap. The roadmap gives you a holistic view of all of your feedback, and it helps you start to understand and prioritize your feedback based on product methodologies, based on your own internal scoring systems, based on customer data. And so once your posts have been added to a specific roadmap, you can layer in even more data to help you guide your decisions. So here in my roadmap, you'll see a list of posts that I've added. On the right-hand side, you'll see kind of a spreadsheet style view where we can look at all the post details, including any scores that we've included, any additional context that matters to your team. And in my roadmap, I have added the number of votes, a segment showing how many high-value customers have voted, and a total annual revenue represented by those voters. You can also click into the little score feature here, and you can create whatever scoring system makes the most sense to your team. If you are new to scoring your work, a common place to start includes the number of votes, annual revenue, customer segments, the impact it will have on your end users, and the amount of effort involved. This is just what we commonly see some of our customers use. You can also customize your roadmap as well. So you can toggle data on and off depending on what matters to your team. And you can also group the roadmap by different attributes. So I personally like grouping the roadmap by status because the go-to-market team really cares about what's being worked on and when. If you are on the pro, business, or growth plan, you can also push roadmap items directly into your product or dev tool. And this is really helpful because it helps to connect these two teams and reduces manual work as well. You can also create a rule in Canny that updates the post statuses automatically. So for example, when a task is marked as complete in Asana, the status in Canny will update as well. And again, the benefit of this is that everyone stays within the loop, and it also reduces the manual work involved. If you're still thinking, what's the best roadmap setup for our team, a few things to think about is number one, what matters most when you're deciding what to build? Think about the conversations you're already having today. This might be how many people are asking for this, how much money is on the line, does this, relate to our overall company objective? Number two is, do you need more than one roadmap? Some teams will often have separate roadmaps, each representing the different product line or representing a timeline like quarter, etc. This is a really good way to make sure you're keeping things clear and a lot easier to manage. Number two is, who is going to be viewing this roadmap? Is it just for the product team, or will your CSMs be viewing this, your sales teams, leadership teams, etc.? Knowing your audience is a really important step to decide how much detail you need to include within your roadmap. There's a lot you can do, so don't get overwhelmed with it. You don't need to do everything. Just focus on what helps your team right now make good and clear decisions. One last important piece of Canny, of the Canny workflow, is closing the feedback loop with your customers. You can do this through the use of status changes, replying to customers, and utilizing the changelog. So let's review status changes first. We can simply do this on the post level. You will see here on the right-hand side that we can update the status. And we can also choose if we want to notify all end users who have voted on this particular post. Your end users can also keep track of status changes when they click into the post in the public-facing portal. They can see all the details here. You can also reply to your end users' comments, so they feel heard and they feel valued. If you're on the pro growth or business plan, you can also take advantage of the feature we have called Smart Replies. Smart Replies uses AI to automatically respond to a customer asking for clarification on the feedback that they've submitted. And finally, a great way to share what you have released is through the changelog. So the changelog is a simple announcement tool. It's a public log of everything that your team has launched, and it's a really great way to show progress and build trust with your customers. So today we have reviewed a few different plans that we offer here at Canny. If you're interested in learning a little bit more, please feel free to check out our pricing page. If something doesn't make sense or we're missing some information there, please feel free to reach out to our support team. We're always happy to help. But thank you so much for your time today, everyone. We really appreciate your attention and your willingness to learn more about Canny. We were so happy to walk you through, and we will open it up for questions now.
Wonderful. We had a busy chat, and Sarah's been answering questions, but we had a couple that we flagged. The first two, I think they're related, but I'll let you answer that. So somebody asked, I've been nervous about using autopilot, as I don't want feedback to be public without us reviewing it in case there's something private or incorrect. Can it be private? I believe the answer is private boards. Is that right?
Yes. So, and Sarah, hold me accountable here, make sure I'm answering this correctly, but I'll just jump back to this autopilot view here. So what you could do is, first and foremost, if it's in manual mode, you have the opportunity to go through the suggestions first, and you decide if you want to make this public. If it's an automatic mode, you have the opportunity to filter it into whatever board you like it to be filtered into. So what some customers do as they are starting to build their trust with autopilot is create, to Claire's point, a private board, and you can name it something like AI suggestions. And so you have the opportunity to kind of review it there as well to make sure this makes sense before you filter it into the right board. Sorry, does that sound about right? Anything I missed there? Yeah, okay.
Thumbs up from Sarah. And then a similar question from Katie, which I think its answer is also private boards, but she asked to see an example of a limited access board to handle beta feedback. would it be a private board as well? Or how would they do that?
Yeah, I would choose a private board, and then just you could individually email those end users who need access to that board. And then only those individuals will have access to it. Actually, it wouldn't be private boards, my apologies. It would be a custom access board that they would need to select.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Katie, we can follow up with you and send you some documentation around that. And then our third question is actually a question for Sarah. So Tomas, who has asked a lot of questions, so thank you so much for your engagement, said that search feels quite loose in a way that they don't feel like search terms are quite taken into account. So they've been struggling to actually find entries for when they're trying to filter the boards. Sorry, it's a very long question. Sarah, I know you've read the question. Do you want to jump in and answer this question?
Yeah. So, Tomas, we can also unmute you in case you have follow-ups, just to make sure we're answering your question correctly. But from what I gather, essentially posts come in. You have a lot of posts that come in, and they're in your board, but there's still quite a lot of posts, and searching doesn't get you to the right ones. So one of the things that I do recommend, and Julia, if you can share the automation screen on your screen, that would be great. But we do have automation rules that you can set up. And what you could do is you can filter the automation rules or set them up so that they're specifically catered to post content that you care about. So if you have a custom field or you just want to look at the description, you can say, if the post contains a particular word, maybe it's type of one of your product features, or I know somebody recently reached out and they were setting it up so that anytime it contains the word AI, the automation rule flags it and then does something with it. So there's a few things you can do with it. You can add it to a roadmap. You can apply a tag to it, like a triage tag, if you want to know which posts have come in that you haven't looked at yet. You can apply a specific status to it. So there's a few things you can do. And I would recommend this approach to give your team, like a pre-filtering method so that your posts are already tagged when you're coming in to review them. If you can give Tomas the ability to speak, Julia, that'd be great just to see if that answers his question.
I don't think he's on the call anymore, but we can follow up with him directly.
Okay. Yeah, we could do.
Wonderful.
And I think he had a second question about the roadmap as well, making it automated. So for anybody on the line as well, the other way to do this, it's the same answer. If you use these automations, one of the outcomes you could select is to add something to a roadmap. And so if anytime somebody answers a custom field with what you need, with like a specific answer, and you want that post to be going into roadmap, you could set it up so that it automatically goes in there for you. Yeah.
Wonderful. We have two final questions, both from Katie. So Katie, I think, wins the most questions today, which we love. Oh no, there's a third one that came in. So Katie asked about why the growth plan isn't on our pricing page anymore. And actually, Canny changed our pricing earlier this year. So our growth plan and our starter plan have now been grandfathered in. So if you're on those plans and you're happy with them, you can stay on them for as long as you want. But we changed our pricing to change the model from a seats model to a tracked user model. And we found that for smaller teams and scaling teams, the value wasn't there when they didn't have a lot of feedback in Canny. So we've reorganized our pricing. That pricing is on our website. If you're curious about exploring a pro or a core plan, you can reach out to our support team, or Katie, we can just follow up with you directly. So the growth plan isn't on the website anymore as it's not available, but do check out the pro plan because yeah, we put a lot of work into the pricing and we hope there's value for you. And then Katie asked another question. She said, when feedback is automatically brought in from intercom with autopilot, does it get posted automatically, or is there a review state where our team can verify them?
Yeah, so basically there's two modes. There's the manual mode, which is that view we looked at, which is like a thumbs up, thumbs down situation. So you can manually go through and decide, is this valid feedback? Does this make sense? So I would highly recommend using manual first, feel comfortable with it. And then when you're feeling ready, you can graduate to the automatic mode, which means it will automatically say yes to all of the autopilot suggestions and filter it into your feedback view, which ultimately means that your end users can see this as well, if they have access to that board. Yes, makes sense. Got it. Okay, great.
Great. And we have one more autopilot question. Is there a place, if autopilot decides that something isn't a post, is there a blog where someone is able to review what autopilot has rejected?
We don't have that right now. It's an interesting request, Vishnu, and we can put it into our feedback board as well so that our product team is aware of this request. But it's a bit of a challenge because there's just a high volume of support tickets and calls. So maybe it would make more sense for, gong calls, which are more limited than support tickets, which come in, thousands. So yeah, that's something to consider as we think through it, but definitely an interesting request. So we can note that down for our product team to review, and um, we'll add you as a voter as well to make sure that we remember that you're interested in that.
I guess one thing to add there is actually the value that a lot of our customers see from autopilot is that they don't have to review everything. So it's actually, we've been asked for the opposite. People say we want to see as limited posts as possible that are high value. We don't want to see everything else. So that's what we've been working with, but I also see the value of being able to see everything if you just want to have a look or correct it, if there's something that autopilot didn't realize was a feature for you. But thank you for the question. Great. I think those are all the questions. We got through all of them. So we'll be following up with the recording of this call. We'll also be sending the slides. We're also going to send a couple questions that we'd love to get some feedback from everybody on. As I said, Office Hours is a new initiative that we're doing, and we're thinking about shifting away from onboarding next and getting into kind of more meaty, deeper topics, maybe around like tagging or how to use private boards, especially with some of the questions we were asked today. So if there's anything you would have liked to have heard from us today, please let us know. We'd love to hear about it. But as always, our support team is here. If you ever have questions, you'll probably end up chatting with Sarah or Jacques, our wonderful support lead. But thank you so much for your time today. I think that's everything from us.